Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss introduction to unit number 4, the power screws. The relevant course outcome for this unit is CO number 4, design of power screw applications like screw jack and C-clamp. Basically, screw applications are of two types. One is principally screws are used for clamping purpose to hold the two workpiece together to clamp the two workpieces. Screw applications or screw types are used. And the second application, major application of screw is power applications. In the power applications, mainly screws are used for applying or exerting force or sustaining or support the force or load, we can say that. Secondly, the power screws are also used for converting rotary motion into reciprocating motion. In the power applications, mainly three different types are used invariably, and the most important type of power screws is square threads. Here, the shape of the threads is in cross section looks like a square. So square threads, the name applied for this kind of threads, and whose proportionate dimensions are as specified in the figure. The second type of power screws is isometric threads, isometric trapezoidal threads, or Acme threads. Isometric threads and Acme threads are look alike. Only difference between the two is instead of 30 degrees angle, thread angle, which is for isometric threads, for Acme threads, the angle is of 29 degrees. Buttress threads are sometimes used where unidirectional force is applied on the threads and its proportions are as shown in the figure. Now let us consider basic terminology of power screws. First, most important terminology or term used in power screw is pitch of the screw. Pitch of the screw is nothing but it is the axial distance between similar points of consecutive threads. It is the axial distance between similar points of consecutive threads. The second important term is lead. Lead is the axial distance covered by a respective nut when screw completes one rotation. It is the travel of the nut for one complete rotation of the screw. It is denoted by small l, and the lead is given by pitch multiplied by number of threads. N suffix t, this is the notation used for number of threads. So P multiplied by number of threads or number of starts denotes the lead of the screw. Again, I will say lead is nothing but it is the axial distance traveled by a corresponding nut for complete one rotation of the screw. Then the important term for screw is nominal diameter. Nominal diameter is the diameter it is also called as measure diameter. It is the diameter used for designating the screw. Screw is designated or identified by its nominal diameter. It is the major diameter, maximum diameter, outside diameter, or it is a nominal diameter. Then minor diameter or nominal or core diameter, it is denoted by DC and it is given by the nominal diameter minus the pitch. The core diameter is the smallest diameter Nominal diameter is the largest diameter, major diameter, and average of the major and minor diameter, it is called as mean diameter. It is denoted by d suffix min, d suffix m, and it is given by the nominal diameter minus half the pitch. Now let us consider or let us discuss something regarding helix angle, and in case of power screw it is also called as lead angle. One point to be noted, as far as the study of helical gear is concerned, their helix angle and lead angle are denoting different angles, complementary angles, and helix angle and lead angle for helical gears are different. Whereas for power screw applications, helix angle and lead angle are denoting one and the same thing. You can see in the figure development of the thread. For one complete rotation of the screw, the axial travel of the nut is equal to L. So when screw completes one rotation, in linear terms, it is given by circumference of the screw, mean circumference of the screw, pi times dm. When pi times dm is the linear movement of the screw, at that time nut is traveled by distance equal to L. So you can see the development of the screw, and the angle subtended is called as lead angle. Sometimes it is denoted by lambda or sometimes it is denoted by alpha. So lead angle lambda is given by tan of lambda is equal to opposite side the lead divided by adjacent side pi times dm. So lambda is equal to tan inverse of L upon pi dm. So knowing the pitch, knowing the number of threads or number of starts, one can calculate the lead. Once you know the lead for a particular screw, and if you are knowing the mean diameter of the screw, you will be in position to calculate lambda, the helix angle, or alpha, the helix angle. Alpha or the lambda, these are the two notations generally used for helix angle. Now let us discuss something regarding hand of the helix. You must be knowing that helix can be of right hand or left hand. So whenever you want to identify hand of helix, first of all, you have to keep the screw in horizontal position. Means what? Its axis should be in horizontal position. The screw whose hand of helix is required to be recognized is to be kept in horizontal position, and then notice the leaning of the helix. Now in figure A, you can note that the helix is leaning towards right hand side. Therefore, screw A is of right hand threads. Screw A is having right hand threads. Whereas for screw B, the helix is leaning towards left hand. Therefore, it is having left hand threads. Now, one thing you can note that in the leftmost figure, if you are applying the thumb rule, you will find that the threads are leaning towards left hand, and so student may confuse whether the screw is of left hand or right hand. But you can see that when you put the screw which is shown in leftmost diagram, leftmost figure, if you are keeping this same screw in horizontal position, having its axis in horizontal position, you will find that actually it is a right hand helix. So whenever you want to identify hand of helix, you have to keep the screw in such a way that its axis is in horizontal position. Now let us discuss regarding designation of the power screws. Power screws are designated as shown in the figure. First of all, you have to mention type of the threads, whether threads are of type square threads or isometric trapezoidal or acme threads. If isometric or acme threads are used, then a suffix tr is used to identify or to note that acme threads or isometric trapezoidal threads are used. So first of all, the type of the screw, SQ, square or trapezoidal TR. Then the next you have to mention the nominal diameter of the screw. In the first case, it is 60, whereas in the second case, the nominal diameter is 40. Afterwards, you have to mention the lead. In the first case, lead is 16. In the second case, lead is 4. Then you have to mention the pitch. So in the first case, lead is 16 and pitch is 8. So here one can identify that it is a double start screw. Double start screw, number of starts is equal to 2, pitch is equal to 8. So the lead is equal to 16. So if it is multi-start threads, multi-start screw, then you have to mention the pitch after the lead. In the second case, as this one is a single start threads, therefore pitch and lead, they are one and the same thing, therefore not necessary to mention P4 again in the second case. Then you have to mention hand of the helix. Now you can see that in the third designation, none of the type of the screw is mentioned, whether it is a square or it is a trapezoidal. Also, left hand or right hand helix is not mentioned. So whenever type of the screw is not mentioned, by default, always it is square threads. So therefore, for the third case, it is a square thread. And if the hand of helix is not mentioned, then by default, always it is a right hand. So the third power screw is of square type. Its nominal diameter is 75. Its lead is 15. Its pitch is 5. That means it is a triple start screw. And no hand of helix is mentioned. That means it is having right hand helix. So using this convention, power screws are designated in practice and identified. Now let us discuss something regarding torque required to raise the load using power screw application. Mainly power screw applications are used for lifting the loads, raising the loads or lowering the loads, or exerting the force, sustaining the force. So while raising or lifting the load, what amount of force is necessary, what amount of torque is necessary, that let us now discuss. Suppose a load required to be lifted is denoted by W, then the effort or the force that should be applied by the operator is P, and the relation between the load and the effort P is given by the operator force or operator effort P is equal to W times tan of phi plus alpha. W is the load, phi is the friction angle. You can see at the bottom, phi is friction angle and it is given by tan inverse of mu, where mu is coefficient of friction. And alpha is the lead angle. We have seen that lead angle alpha or lead angle is denoted by lambda, which is equal to tan inverse of L, the lead, divided by pi times dm, where dm is the mean diameter. So effort P is given by load W multiplied by tan of phi plus alpha. Knowing the effort, one can find out what is the torque Mt. M suffix T is the notation for torque. Mt, the torque required to raise the load, is given by P times dm upon 2, where P is the effort and dm is mean diameter. So the torque required to lift the load is given by WDM upon 2 tan of phi plus alpha. W is the load, dm is the mean diameter, phi is the friction angle, which is equal to tan inverse of mu, where mu is the coefficient of friction and alpha is the lead angle. Now one may think that there will be no requirement of force while lowering the load, but that is not the case always. Torque required to lower the load, torque required to lower the load is given by mt is equal to WDM upon 2 tan of phi minus alpha. Effort required while lowering the load is given by P is equal to W tan of phi minus alpha. Here one thing to be noted that while lifting or raising the load, it is W tan of phi plus alpha, whereas while lowering the load, it is W tan of phi minus alpha. And on the similar lines, torque required while lowering the load is given by WDM upon 2 tan of phi minus alpha or phi minus lambda. Now let us discuss something regarding self-locking property, self-locking or overrounding nature of the screw. Self-locking screw means the screw, if you are loaded the screw and if you are not applying the effort, then the load is sustained by the screw. Whereas in case of overhauling screw, suppose you are lifting the load and at a particular point, if you stop applying the force, applying the effort or applying the torque required to lift the load, then the load gets lowered down of its own. It is not held or sustained in the position. That is called as overhauling screw. Self-locking screw, suppose we are lifting the screw and we stop to apply the force, apply the effort or apply the torque, then the load remains or gets sustained at its raised or lifted position. Whereas while whereas in case of overhauling screw, suppose we are lifting the load and all of a sudden we stop applying the force or applying the torque, then the lifted load is not sustained at its lifted position, it gets lowered down of its own. So self-locking and overhauling, both kind of screws are having their own applications. Generally in practice we need to have self-locking, generally self-locking screw for different applications. There are few applications of overhauling screw also, but generally we need to have self-locking screw. Now how to check whether a screw is self-locking or not? For that we have to calculate efficiency of a screw application. Efficiency of a screw application is given by tan of alpha divided by tan of phi plus alpha, where alpha is the lead angle and phi is the friction angle. If this efficiency of the screw is less than 50% or less than 0.5, then we can definitely say that our screw application is of self-locking nature. If efficiency is more than 50%, then our screw application turns into overhauling screw application. For a screw itself, if the friction angle if the friction angle is greater than the lead angle, by mistake I have written smaller than alpha, there should be phi. If phi is greater than alpha, that is friction angle is greater than the lead angle, then the screw is of self-locking nature. Again, I should mention that in this slide, by mistake I have written phi is smaller than equal to alpha, whereas correctly it should be phi is greater than equal to alpha. If phi, the friction angle is greater than alpha, the lead angle, then the screw happens to be of self-locking nature. So these are some basic concepts or basic idea regarding power screw applications. In today's tutorial, we studied what is the basic terminology of power screw, what is called as hand of helix and how to identify hand of helix, how to designate the screws, how to calculate how to find out torque required to raise the load and of course lower the load, how to calculate efficiency of the screw, and what is self-locking or overhauling property of the screw, and how to decide whether a particular screw is self-locking or overhauling nature. That's all for today's video tutorial. Thank you.